There are moments in life when a sentence leaves your lips and, without your realizing it, the world tilts. The few words spoken, almost casually, set into motion an invisible ripple, altering the shape of events, influencing the texture of perception, rearranging unseen threads that weave together your experience. To most, these words seem harmless, fleeting, carried away into the air like breath. But what if each syllable, each utterance, does not vanish into silence, but instead imprints itself into the very code of reality, reprogramming the living script of existence as you go? To speak is to cast a spell. Language, though so common we barely notice it, is the architect of worlds. Before cities rise, before laws are written, before identities are claimed, there are words. Words are not merely descriptive symbols, they are generative forces. They give form to thought, translate invisible imagination into audible vibrations, and extend the interior into the exterior. The phrase you whisper in the quiet of your mind, "I am strong, I am weak, I am lost, I am free," is not just a string of sounds. It is code, written into the hidden operating system of your reality. Imagine reality as a vast, living tapestry, infinite threads, stretching across dimensions beyond comprehension. Each word you speak is a shuttle weaving a new pattern, embedding new colors and designs into the grand fabric. Most people believe they are only observers, moving through a pre-written narrative, powerless against its momentum. Yet, language is the quill, and you are the scribe. You have been scripting all along, whether consciously or unconsciously. Every promise you made, every complaint uttered, every declaration of love or despair has left a mark, not only in the ears of those who heard it, but in the architecture of the possible. This truth is not mystical exaggeration, it is a recognition of power. Consider history. Entire civilizations have risen and fallen through words, an emperor's decree, a philosopher's teaching, a sacred scripture whispered across generations. A single speech can move millions to act, to rebel, to believe, and at the level of the individual, words have carved paths just as profound. A child told repeatedly that they are worthless grows into that belief, as though it were ironclad destiny. Another told they are capable, brave, and brilliant, begins to walk with an invisible crown, carrying possibilities others cannot see. The tongue, small though it is, becomes the lever that moves the entire structure of life. If we look deeper still, beyond the psychological, beyond the social, we enter a more cosmic dimension. Physics tells us that reality at its most fundamental level is vibration. The universe is not a solid stage but a field of oscillations, frequencies, and waves. Words are sound, and sound is vibration. To speak is to send waves into the ocean of existence, rippling across its surface and depths, colliding with the vibrations of matter and thought alike. Perhaps this is why ancient traditions considered language sacred, why scriptures began with phrases like, "In the beginning was the Word." They were not speaking in mere poetry, they were pointing to an elemental truth. The word is not decoration, it is foundation. Think of the times you have spoken to yourself in despair, muttering, "Nothing ever works out for me." That statement seems harmless, a sigh into the night. Yet soon enough, your mind begins to filter reality, searching unconsciously for evidence that confirms it. Opportunities pass unnoticed, potential allies feel distant. You weave reality into alignment with the vibration of your words, until your environment reflects them back as truth. Conversely, when you say, "I will find a way," even when you don't know how, your perception shifts. You begin to notice hidden doors, to interpret obstacles differently, to carry yourself with an energy that subtly invites support. The world rearranges around your declaration. Every conversation becomes, then, more than chatter, it is construction. When you argue in bitterness, you are not just venting, you are erecting walls of division. When you speak with kindness, you are not merely being polite, you are laying bridges across which connection may flow. Even in silence, when you speak internally, you are altering the internal landscape that governs how you interpret and create the external. Words spoken in the solitude of your mind may never be heard by another, yet they still etch the code that your subconscious follows with unwavering obedience. That the great tragedy is that so few realize this. They believe words are small things, that they vanish as easily as they arrive. And so, they speak carelessly, muttering curses about their circumstances, repeating mantras of limitation without knowing they are programming themselves with those very limitations. Others wield words with great intention, understanding that to speak is to summon. They speak blessings into existence. They declare visions. They nurture others with encouragement, and the reality around them bends accordingly. The difference between these two lives is not chance, nor is it talent. It is mastery of language as the sculptor of reality. There is a reason why in so many cultures, the act of naming carries such gravity. To name something is to give it existence in the collective mind. A nameless fear is a shadow. Once spoken, it takes form, and once it takes form, it can be faced. A nameless dream remains mist. Once spoken, it begins to crystallize, drawing energy into manifestation. Naming is programming, and programming is creation. As you begin to understand this, you realize that every word is not casual. Every word is an instruction, a line of code, a seed planted in the fertile soil of reality. Speak in despair, and you plant thorns. Speak in faith, and you plant gardens. Speak in anger, and you scatter fire. Speak in love, and you cultivate light. Reality, like an attentive gardener, nurtures what you sow, whether you intended it or not. To say every word you speak changes the code of reality is to unveil this hidden architecture of existence. It is to remind you that you are not a bystander, but a participant in shaping the unfolding of life. Your words, whether whispered to yourself in doubt or proclaimed boldly in faith, are woven into the invisible program that directs the visible world. This is both a gift and a responsibility, for with every utterance, you are either designing your liberation or tightening your chains. And so, the question arises, if each word you speak holds such creative force, how will you choose to speak? What will you declare about yourself, about your life, about the world? The choice is not trivial. It is the code you are writing, the world you are building, the reality you are living. If the introduction is the opening of the curtain, revealing that every word carries power, then this section is stepping deeper into the stage itself, to examine the pillars that uphold this strange architecture of language and reality. To understand how words change the code of existence, we must trace the threads that connect sound to thought, thought to belief, belief to action, and action to the unfolding story of life. This is not merely a matter of psychology. It is a recognition of the patterns by which the universe responds to us, as if listening in on every syllable, rearranging itself according to the vibrations we send into its expanse. The first theme is the inseparable bond between thought and word. Thoughts, on their own, are like unformed clouds, drifting without shape. The moment they are spoken, however, they crystallize into something tangible. Speech is thought incarnated into vibration. This process alone gives words power beyond imagination, for to give form to thought is to place it into the world where it can ripple outward, influencing minds, relationships, and matter. Even when spoken quietly to oneself, words reinforce thought, embedding it more deeply into the neural pathways of the brain, turning passing impressions into entrenched beliefs. Belief is the second pillar, for words do not float idly. They are carriers of belief, even when spoken in jest. When someone says, "I can't," often it is not mere sound but the expression of an unseen belief. That belief, once spoken aloud, digs its roots deeper. Conversely, when someone declares, "I can," even when trembling with doubt, the act of speaking begins to forge belief where none previously existed. This is why affirmations, mantras, and declarations have echoed throughout spiritual traditions for millennia. They are not magical incantations in the childish sense of fantasy, but magical in the truest sense. They rewire the speaker's inner code and, through that, alter the reality that emerges from it. Closely connected to belief is the theme of alignment. Words are not effective in isolation. They carry their greatest force when they align with intention. To say "I am abundant" while seething with resentment or disbelief will feel hollow, as though the code being written is corrupted. But to align word, intention, and emotion is to send a coherent signal into the universe, one that reality reflects with startling clarity. Imagine a musician playing an instrument. A discordant note resonates weakly, dying quickly in the air. A harmonious chord, however, fills the room, its vibrations lingering and intermingling with the listener's own. So too with words. When aligned with authentic intention, they resonate strongly enough to change the surrounding environment. Another guiding principle is the law of attention. What you speak about, you feed. Language directs awareness. and awareness is energy. When someone continually speaks about their limitations, they are feeding those limitations, pouring attention and energy into them, watering the weeds that choke possibility. On the other hand, when they speak about their aspirations, even tentatively, they redirect energy toward those possibilities, nourishing the seeds of potential. Reality is sculpted by where attention flows, and words are the compass directing that flow. Underlying these themes is the recognition of resonance. Everything in existence vibrates, from atoms to galaxies, and words are vibrations. This is not metaphor alone, it is literal physics. When you speak, your words produce waves that interact with the world. At one level, they enter the ears of others, stirring emotions, thoughts, and actions. At another, subtler level, they harmonize or clash with the unseen vibrations of existence itself. Ancient mystics spoke of the music of the spheres, the idea that the cosmos itself hums with vibrational order. To speak in harmony with truth, with love, with faith, is to tune oneself to that cosmic music. To speak in discord through hatred, lies, or despair is to place oneself out of rhythm with the larger song, a dissonance that eventually manifests as chaos and suffering. Yet, perhaps the most profound theme is responsibility. Once one realizes that every word spoken alters the code of reality, the casual use of language becomes impossible. Words of complaint, gossip, or self-condemnation are not harmless, they are destructive acts, chiseling pathways that life inevitably follows. Likewise, words of encouragement, truth, and vision are acts of construction, erecting structures that one may live within tomorrow. To speak is to wield a tool sharper than any blade and more enduring than stone. What civilizations carve into monuments may crumble over centuries, but the words spoken in a moment may echo in the mind of a listener for a lifetime. And then comes the theme of co-creation. You are not coding reality alone. Every word you exchange with another human being enters their system of belief, influencing their perception and, in turn, the choices they make. Conversations are collaborative acts of programming. When two people continually affirm each other's limitations, they build a prison together. When they encourage each other's growth, they build a garden. Collective language forms collective realities. Nations, religions, and cultures are bound together by shared vocabularies, myths, and declarations. And to shift those words is to shift the very identity of the collective. This is why revolutions begin not with swords but with slogans, why spiritual awakenings begin with revelations spoken aloud, why communities are healed or divided by the words leaders choose to utter. Finally, there is the theme of silence. Silence is not the absence of power but its womb. It is the space in which words gather energy before being released. To speak without awareness is to waste that energy. To speak from silence, from intentional stillness, is to unleash words with greater force and clarity. Just as the musician values the pause between notes, the conscious speaker values the silence before words, for it is in that pause that one chooses what kind of reality to summon next. Together, these themes form a constellation of understanding. Words crystallize thought, embed belief, align with intention, direct attention, resonate with reality, carry responsibility, co-create with others, and emerge from silence. Each theme is a star, but together they form a map, showing that language is not merely descriptive, but generative, not merely reflection, but creation. To follow this map is to understand that every utterance is a brushstroke upon the canvas of life, that you are painting constantly whether you intend to or not. And so, we must ask ourselves, if the canvas of reality responds to every word we speak, what kind of picture are we painting with our lives? Is it a masterpiece born of awareness, harmony, and vision? Or is it a haphazard scroll of careless words, each line pulling the picture into disarray? The answer depends, not on fate, but on the next word you choose to speak. To grasp the living mystery of how every word you speak changes the code of reality, it helps to step beyond dry explanation and into storied, full symbols have a way of opening doors that logic alone cannot touch. Allegory allows us to bypass the narrow corridors of intellect and walk straight into the cathedral of understanding, where echoes and shadows reveal truths the rational mind often resists. Let us then turn to symbolic narratives that illustrate this hidden architecture of language. Imagine a great library that stretches beyond the stars, its shelves endless, each book a life, each page a moment. Within this library, there are scribes who do not write with ink but with sound. Every word you utter becomes etched into the pages of your life book, not as a decoration, but as a command. If you speak despair, the letters darken, summoning storms across the storyline. If you speak hope, the pages glow, illuminating paths forward that had previously been hidden. This library does not discriminate between the words you speak lightly and the ones you speak with solemnity. All are recorded, all altered the trajectory of the tale. The whisper you dismiss as meaningless may become the thread that pulls a chapter in a new direction. Consider also the ancient myth of creation told across countless cultures, that the world was spoken into being. Whether it was a divine word, a chant, or a vibration, creation began not with hands shaping clay but with voice shaping existence. This myth repeats itself because it contains a universal recognition that speech precedes form. Humanity, as a fragment of that same creative source, carries the echo of that power. To speak is to create in miniature what the cosmos created in grandeur. When you say "let there be love," even in the smallest corner of your life, you reenact the primal gesture of creation itself, opening space for light to enter where before there was none. There is also the allegory of the blacksmith of words. In a hidden workshop lit by the glow of molten metal, a blacksmith forges swords, not of steel but of syllables. Each word hammered upon the anvil becomes a blade that either wounds or heals. Some blades are heavy with rage, slicing into others, leaving scars that last lifetimes. Others are sharp with truth, cutting away illusion, freeing what was bound. And still others are delicate instruments of healing, as gentle as a scalpel in the hands of a master, removing the poison of despair from the heart of another. You are this blacksmith. Each conversation, each declaration, is an act of forging. The question is not whether you will craft, but what you will craft. Will you produce weapons of destruction or instruments of light? Another symbolic tale. Picture a vast field under the moonlight. Every word you speak is a seed cast into the soil. Some seeds grow quickly, sprouting flowers of kindness that brighten the paths of others. Some seeds grow into weeds of bitterness that entangle your steps and choke the life around them. Some, like oaks of vision, take years to rise, but when they do, they stand immovable, offering shelter for generations. You cannot walk this field without sowing. The very act of speaking is sowing. Tomorrow's harvest depends not on luck, but on the seeds scattered today. Even silence is not the absence of sowing, it is the leaving of ground fallow, allowing the soil to regain strength so that the next seed planted may grow stronger. Then there is the parable of the mirror hole. Imagine you enter a grand hole, lined with countless mirrors. Every word you speak bounces from one surface to another, multiplied infinitely, until the sound fills the hole like a choir. Say, "I am weak," and the hole resounds endlessly. Weak, 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 pressing down upon you until you bow beneath its weight. Say, "I am strong," and the echoes amplify until you feel the walls themselves vibrating with power. In truth, the hole is life itself. Words do not vanish. They reverberate, returning amplified through experiences, opportunities, and encounters. What you say once may seem small, but once mirrored by the whole of existence, it becomes the soundtrack to your days. Lastly, consider the tale of the coder and the living program. Reality is a grand simulation, endlessly adapting, endlessly rewriting itself. Each word you speak is a line of code entered into this program. Say, "Life is against me," and the program rewrites itself to present obstacles. Say, "Life is for me," and suddenly doors appear where walls once stood. The program does not resist, it obeys. It runs the code you provide, without judgment, without pause. The tragedy is that most people type unconsciously, filling the system with errors and contradictions. The awakening comes when you realize you are the coder, and reality is listening with infinite attentiveness. Every line you enter shifts the script, changing not just your path, but the very terrain on which you walk. These symbolic narratives are not fantasy. They are mirrors for the unseen processes already shaping your life. The library is memory, the field is potential. The blacksmith's forge is the power of your speech. The hole of mirrors is the echo of your beliefs, and the program is the responsiveness of the universe itself. Each allegory reveals the same truth from different angles. Words are not decorations of reality, but directives to it. You are not a passive passenger through existence. You are a storyteller whose voice carves the very road you walk upon. And so, when you next speak, even in jest, even in husk, ask yourself, which library entry am I writing? Which seed am I sowing? Which blade am I forging? Which echo am I creating? Which code am I inputting? For the story that follows will grow directly from that choice. It is one thing to marvel at symbolic tales and cosmic metaphors. It is another to bring those revelations into the soil of daily life, where our routines, struggles, and choices take shape. The power of words is not meant to remain locked in myth or philosophy. It is meant to be lived, breathed, and embodied, because reality does not unfold only in abstractions. It unfolds in the conversations we have, the promises we make, the self-talk we carry in the privacy of our minds. To understand that every word changes the code of reality is to accept a practical, transformative responsibility. The first integration begins with awareness. To notice the words you use is to shine a light on the invisible patterns you have been unconsciously weaving. For most people, speech is automatic. They complain without noticing. They gossip without reflection. They mutter words of limitation as if they were harmless. But the moment you begin to listen to yourself with the ear of a creator, you recognize that each phrase is an instruction, an order to the universe. Awareness allows you to pause before declaring, "I can't," to stop before telling yourself this will never work. In that pause, the code shifts. The silence becomes a fertile ground where a new word can be planted, one that creates possibility instead of closing it. Practical integration also means reprogramming your self-dialogue. The loudest and most influential words are often the ones no one else hears. What you tell yourself in quiet moments determines the posture of your soul toward life. A person who continually repeats, "I am unlucky," begins to filter out opportunities, noticing only evidence that confirms their belief. But when they begin to speak differently, "I am learning," "I am growing stronger," "I attract possibilities," they reorient their perception. This change is not about fantasy, it is about direction. By speaking new words into the mirror of the mind, you rewrite the code by which your subconscious interprets reality. Over time, life begins to bend toward these new instructions, revealing doors that once seemed hidden. Equally important is how we speak to others. Words exchanged in conversation are not casual, they are acts of construction. The encouragement you offer to a friend may shift that path for years. The careless insult you fling in anger may wound them far beyond the moment. Real-world implications are everywhere. The teacher who says to a child, "You are brilliant," may ignite a fire that carries them through obstacles. The boss who says, "You'll never succeed," may plant chains of doubt that last decades. To recognize this is to wield words with reverence. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to code not only your reality, but the shared reality you inhabit with others. Integration also extends to collective language. Communities, families, organizations, and nations all operate within the codes of the words they repeat. When a culture endlessly repeats narratives of fear, scarcity, or division, it programs itself into a self-fulfilling cycle of distrust and limitation. When, however, a group begins to speak of possibility, unity, and abundance, even in small pockets, the collective program shifts. Consider the power of slogans, movements, or simple shared declarations. They create new fields of reality, inviting individuals to step into possibilities they may not have imagined alone. On a practical level, this means paying attention not only to your private words, but also to the conversations you contribute to in your community. By shaping collective vocabulary, you help shape collective destiny. There is also a subtler, but equally crucial, layer of integration. Speaking with integrity, to say one thing and mean another, or to make promises you do not keep, is to fracture the alignment between word and reality. Every broken word weakens trust, not only with others, but within yourself. Conversely, when your words and actions align, your speech becomes potent. People listen differently when they sense that your words are rooted in truth, that they are not merely sounds but reflections of integrity. Practically, this means speaking less but with greater care, offering words that you intend to embody, creating a life where speech and action form a seamless thread. And then there is the practice of intentional speech. This is the art of choosing words as carefully as a painter chooses colors. In the morning, you might declare, "Today will bring opportunities I am ready to embrace." In moments of difficulty, You might say, I trust that this challenge carries hidden lessons. These are not empty phrases. They are code, spoken consistently. They become the architecture around which your life arranges itself. This practice does not guarantee the absence of struggle, but it ensures that when struggle arrives, it does so in a context of meaning and growth, rather than despair. Even in conflict, intentional speech changes outcomes. Consider how arguments transform when one person chooses words of responsibility instead of blame. Here is what I feel. Here is what I need instead of you always fail me. The code shifts, and so does the result. Words spoken in awareness can de-escalate chaos, invite resolution, and preserve relationships that careless speech might have destroyed. Finally, to integrate this wisdom practically is to practice gratitude in words. Gratitude spoken aloud, even privately, has a magnetic effect. To say, I am thankful for this day, or I am grateful for this lesson, is to tune your vibration to abundance rather than lack. Gratitude is not passive, it is generative. It draws more of what is appreciated into awareness, altering the code so that life itself responds with greater generosity. In the end, the practical implications are vast. You reshape your inner world. By altering your self-talk, you influence others profoundly through the words you speak to them. You participate in collective destiny through shared narratives, and you align yourself with truth and possibility through intentional declarations. None of this requires mystical ceremony or complex ritual. It requires only awareness, choice, and the courage to speak differently. The question, then, is whether you are willing to take up this responsibility. Are you ready to treat words not as passing sounds but as the very architecture of the life you are building? For once you recognize that power, neutrality is impossible. You are either coding unconsciously, creating chaos, or coding consciously, shaping harmony. The choice belongs to you, moment by moment, word by word. Every journey of truth eventually circles back to simplicity. After weaving metaphors of libraries and fields, after tracing cosmic vibrations and cultural narratives, we return to the intimate, undeniable fact. Every word you speak changes the code of reality. It is a truth so close, so ever-present, that it often escapes notice. Yet once seen, it cannot be unseen. You are the architect of your own life, and the bricks with which you build are not stone or steel, but syllables and phrases. Think of the thousands of words you speak in a single day. Some are tossed into the air without thought, some are whispered in secrecy, some are declared with conviction. Each carries weight. Each becomes either a thread of harmony or a knot of discord, woven into the living fabric of your experience. Life listens to you not in the metaphorical sense alone, but in a literal, vibrational way. Your declarations echo into the field of existence, and the field responds. When you say, I am capable, doors align. When you mutter, I will never escape this, the walls thicken. The code is written in real time, and reality adjusts accordingly. This recognition is both liberating and sobering, for it reveals that you are not trapped, but neither are you innocent of the worlds you create. Responsibility flows into your hands. No longer can you blame fate, chance, or circumstance alone, for your words have been co-authors in your story. But neither do you need to despair, for the script is never finished. With the very next word you speak, you may begin rewriting, redirecting, reprogramming. Reality is a living script, and your voice holds the pen. The call, then, is not simply to be cautious with words, though caution is part of wisdom. The call is to become deliberate, intentional, courageous. Speak as though every sentence were a spell, because it is. Speak vision even when shadows surround you. Speak kindness even when anger tempts you. Speak gratitude even when scarcity looms, for the word does not merely describe the world, it summons it. Consider what would happen if, beginning tomorrow, you chose to transform your speech. Imagine awakening and declaring, not I dread this day, but this day carries gifts waiting to be uncovered. Imagine meeting challenges not with I cannot handle this, but with I will grow through this. Imagine speaking to others, not with casual indifference, but with conscious intention. I see your strength. I believe in your journey. You matter. The ripple of such words would not end with you. It would move through the minds of others, altering their codes, shifting the shared reality you inhabit together. One transformed vocabulary could ignite a chain reaction of transformation in countless lives. Even silence becomes different when infused with awareness. It is no longer emptiness, but the sacred pause before creation. To withhold careless words is to prevent the scattering of weeds. To wait, to breathe, to choose, this is the discipline of the Creator. From silence arises the opportunity to plant new words. Words aligned with your truest vision of yourself and the world, so the transformational call is clear. Become a conscious author of reality through speech. Guard the words you use as you would guard the seeds of a garden you hope to flourish. Replace the curses you mutter about yourself with blessings. Replace the declarations of impossibility with declarations of growth. Replace the language of division with language of connection. Let each conversation, each whisper, each inner dialogue be treated as sacred. For sacred it is. And remember this, you are never voiceless. Even when the world silences you externally, you still hold the internal voice, and that voice is where creation begins. It is in the secret conversations you have with yourself that destiny takes root. Speak there with reverence. Speak there with courage. Speak there with faith, for the universe hears, and it reshapes itself in response. In the end, reality is not fixed stone but flowing river. Words are the currents that shape its course. You have always been speaking it into form. The question is, will you continue unconsciously, repeating old patterns, or will you awaken and speak with vision? The choice waits in your next sentence. The future is written in your next declaration, and the code of reality is ready to respond, ready to shift, ready to mirror back the power you dare to voice. So speak. Speak as though your words matter, because they do. Speak as though the universe is listening, because it is. Speak as though every utterance shapes a destiny, because it does. And let the life that unfolds from your lips be not one of chance, but one of conscious creation and existence, written line by line, syllable by syllable, into a masterpiece of your choosing.